A couple of weeks ago, I asked the Miniscape community for any questions they wanted me to answer. Since I recently reached 1,000 subscribers, and thank you by the way, I feel this is a good time to answer them. I'm Matthew, this is Miniscape. Let's get cracking. The first question is from Evan Lindsay, who asks, which Imperial Guard Army would you collect? And which army would you paint next? A nice easy one to start off with, and I'm glad you called them by their proper name and not the Astra Militarum. Goodness, I feel a bit sick in my mouth saying that. It never sat right with me that GW opted for effectively what is Space Army in their pseudo-Latin. Anyway, I already have an Imperial Guard Army, and they are Cadian shock troops. After I lost my NIDS back in 2014, I redirected my efforts into the Guard, and by the time 7th edition came, I played a few games with them. I have over 100 infantry, 4 Lehman Russes, 3 Chimeras, and a Valkyrie, amongst others. I also won a converted model competition at my local store when I built this random buggy. Last year I finished painting them, but right now they are stored away. The only reason I started collecting them was because at the time it was either them or Catachans, and the latter had no interest for me. Any other regiment was rare or ridiculously expensive, since Catachans and Cadians were the only ones to have come out in plastic at that time. So, Cadians it was. However, if money was no object, I would choose Mordian Iron Guard. I've loved their uniforms since 2nd, and if a plastic version was released I would definitely buy some. I know they can be converted, but it's too big a project for me. To answer the next part of your question, the next army I'm painting is, no surprise, Ultramarines, again, but this time it's for 10th edition 40k and it's going to be with mainly Primaris Marines. I have an Ultramarine army for 2nd and Horus Heresy already, so I need to complete the trifecta and go for the up-to-date Ultras. I'm starting with the Leviathan box set, and we'll be going from there. Thanks, Evan. Next, David Cuthbertson asks, what hobby purchase would you make if money were no object? Wow, that's a big one. If I had no end of money, what would I buy? Well, I know you're expecting me to say a Warlord Titan or another massive army, but honestly, I would pay someone to build and paint an amazing gaming board. And the theme I would choose is a starship interior. I love the idea of armies boarding each other's ships. It's the reason I chose to base my lamenters on deckplate style bases. One hobby dream is to take part in a Badab War campaign with ship-to-ship boarding actions, and a table like this with fantastic starship interiors would be the absolute dream. Thanks, David. I know you asked a few more questions, but I will come back to them later. The Jonathan130 asks, have you found out if that cardstock killer can from the 2nd edition box is tournament legal? I presume you mean the cardboard dreadnought from 2nd edition. Tough one. The only information I have to go on is from a few internet searches. In practice, it's not something I've attempted to do, and I've very little interest in tournaments anyway. One Reddit thread seems to suggest they are legal since they were a box model and they came with a base, but I guess you'd have to ask at Warhammer World, for instance, for their take on it. I like this image I found of someone who's actually based theirs in line with the current base size and stuck the cardboard dreadnought on it. Absolutely stonking work there. Insert name 48 asks, what is your biggest hobby goal of the moment? Well, if you know me well, you'll know I'm a real hobby butterfly, and I like to flit from project to project, not even finishing one before I start another. So I have a few on the go, and my goals are, number 1, build and paint a mainly Primaris Ultramarines army. Number 2, paint some more metal models I have lying around, some Blood Angels, and some Ultramarines for 2nd edition 40k. And number 3, get ready for October 2023. I've got quite the collection of old Orc metal models from around about 2nd edition, which are unpainted and lying in a box. But sometime soon I'll put them together and I'll take the mold lines off them and get them ready to paint. I might make a video about it. Stay tuned. Wayne Catlin asks, how do you pronounce this word? And is it jam and then cream or cream then jam? Well, the word that you typed there, S-C-O-N-E, I pronounce scone. My wife says scone. Sometimes, to be different, I say scoon, and then I offend either no one or everyone. The way I make my cream teas are scone, warm it in the microwave for 10 seconds, butter, and let that melt in, jam, and then clotted cream, followed by a timely cardiac arrest. But what a way to go. Thanks for that question, Wayne. Suitboy1693 asks, how do you paint your lamenters shoulder pads? I assume it was paint. I think you missed out a word there. Yeah, the method that works for me is, first of all, I prime the shoulder pads white. Second, the rims around the shoulder pads get painted yellow. Avalanche Sunset is my yellow colour of choice. Third, I use a very pale grey on the main area of the pauldron. Normally I just take white and mix a tiny bit of black in there as well. Fourth, I draw on the vertical lines first with a black fine liner pen. So, the way that I do this is I take a strip of insulation tape, which I use as a guide to get the lines straight. Then I draw the horizontal lines. Usually I just eyeball these, and I aim to make the squares on the shoulder pad, well, as square as possible. I use thin black paint to fill in half of these squares, and then I use white to tidy up any mistakes where black should be. When the checks are done, I paint on a white circle, and then when that's dry I use Mephiston red for the heart and a blood drop. For the heart I paint 2 red dots first, and then a triangle pointing downwards underneath them, and then I shade all that in red. Finally, I draw a black line around the white circle to finish it off. I hope that helps. David from earlier has a few more questions. His first is, as someone who enjoys 2nd edition and 3rd edition Warhammer 40k, are you excited for 10th? Yes, I am excited for 10th. It's a different but equally rewarding experience, and the free index cards helps a lot. I hate buying codexes which have a limited shelf life. I know they are full of pretty pictures and lore, but I can get that on the internet. Next, if you were James' workshop for, say, a day, what would you change? Well, 2 things I'd change. First of all rules would be free forever with free updates. And secondly, I'd open a store in my local area, preferably within walking distance. Third, what is your favourite faction and why is it Tau? It is most certainly not Tau. They are one of my least favourite. My favourite faction used to be Nids, Tyranids, but I've been over that story multiple times. I collect Space Marines a lot because they are straightforward and simple to collect. I like Guard because I like the idea of the common person winning in a universe full of terrors and nightmares. I relate to that. I like Orcs because they are silly and have great modelling potential. As for Tau, they've never appealed. When they were released, my Blood Angels enjoyed mincing them in close combat. In 6th, my Tyranids hated getting shot up by them. I played versus a guy who had an absolute unstoppable gun line, and there was nothing I could do. I dislike their aesthetic too. Not my thing. Sorry if that's painful to hear, but we're all different. Next question. If an Imperial Guard regiment was based off you, what type of warfare would it be specialised in, and what type would it do best to avoid? So, an Imperial Guard regiment based entirely off me. Well, if you know what my day job is, you will understand this when I say chemical warfare. Yes, chemical warfare. What would they avoid? Well, probably close quarters fighting. They wouldn't want to choke on their own chemical warfare, I guess. Interesting question. I've never created my own chapter or Imperial Guard regiment. I get why people would want to do it, but I feel that I might be later disappointed with my creation and regret it, the custom paint scheme and everything. So the closest I've come to doing that is my orcs, since, well, I just paint them however I like, and that seems to fit with the orc aesthetic. And that's all the questions that I have for today. I hope you've enjoyed listening to them. I hope you've got to know me a bit better through them. If you have any other questions you'd like me to answer, put them down in the comments and I'll try to answer them in a future video. Or maybe I'll do another video like this when I get to 2,000 subscribers. And with that, I had better go and paint some more minis. Take care, and thanks for watching.